Alrighty, today is Monday, September 8th. I'm here with Chase as usual. A lot of things happened this past weekend and all last week after we last recorded. I think first and foremost, apparently Donald Trump was having sex with children for the FBI, is what I learned. Mike Johnson came out saying that Donald Trump was in fact an informant for the FBI into Jeffrey Epstein, which sounds like it means that he knew everything that Jeffrey Epstein was doing for quite some time, and goes against what I guess Trump said in terms of saying there is no list and that, the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing was a hoax. He was just a weird guy. I mean, what are your feelings on this? Where do you think we are with this whole Jeffrey Epstein? Is it a hoax? Is it not a hoax? What's going on in your mind with this?
Um, I mean, I think it's a deeper question in a lot of ways to me, and it says a lot about Trump that at the same time that there's Epstein victims speaking out and having a conversation um, to tell their truth at an event with bipartisan people. Like, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna and you know, um, I forgot the other guy's name. I literally know him all the time.
Tommy
Um,
Massey, Thomas Massey.
yes, exactly. I don't know how I could forget him. But the point is, this isn't some radical Democrat thing. It's most people want answers. Um, and I think in a lot of ways it kind of shows you that there's deep divides within the base, but also like it indicates everything about Donald Trump, right? That you have a conversation, you call it a hoax while these women are telling their stories. But what's changed? How many times have women told their stories and Donald Trump denied it?
Yeah,
And this isn't it's not something like that's far off or some hypothetical. He's literally done it time and time again when he's accused of predatory behavior on in the same level of Epstein. And, uh I kind of think the whole Donald Trump is an informant was um really Johnson flailing
yeah,
because basically you're teeing it up where his name's going to be in there a lot, but he's a hero. He's a hero actually, and which somebody was saying a lot of informants tend to be flipped individuals who were basically a part of the crime and
yeah,
doing these things. And then, they turn and they have some sort of information. And look, maybe there is some truth to that. Maybe, Trump did do that. But then why wouldn't you release it? And wouldn't you know?
yeah,
If you're an informant, wouldn't you know who's in the book or who went there into the island and things like that? Um, and I think even beyond that, a lot of some of the Epstein victims, and look, you can say that they're Democratic plants or they're just trying to distract. They were having conversations about how Epstein had a picture of Donald Trump on his, like,
yeah,
in his bedroom or something like that. And would brag about how many people he knew.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, there's clearly something there, and I think almost everybody, like every single action that they've done, makes it that much more concerning and questionable.
yeah,
You clearly know this, something about this, and there's somebody you're trying to protect, whether it's the president, whether it's his donors, whether it's, I don't know, assets, intelligence assets. I mean, I know people think that's kind of outlandish, but there's conversations with Maxwell that are really strange.
yeah,
There's a whole, I'm not going to go into that now, but you can look it up and you can, say what you want with that. Um, but I mean, I think, you know, he can't really do almost anything these days, Trump, without, people commenting under the Twitter, like saying, what about them Epstein files? What about the Epstein files?
yeah,
And while I think, not everything is like for the Epstein files to hide from it, it shows you how much his message isn't resonating. Um, and I think one, because of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, but overall on almost every single front, it doesn't look like there's any winning.
Yeah.
No matter how much you're phrasing, oh, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. Most Americans aren't feeling the winning,
Right.
regardless of whether they voted for him or not. They're not feeling it. Um, and so I think not just with that, but also I think there's indication from what JD Vance was saying on Fox News the other day, where he was saying that the bad news is, unfortunately, anger tends to win the midterms, and they're angry at how much we've done. The opposite is true. Most Americans are angry at how little is getting done.
Yeah.
You can't. It didn't work for Biden. It's not going to work for Trump. You cannot sit there and scream and act like the country's just gonna listen to you about how great the economy is when they don't feel it in their everyday lives. And I think that in a lot of ways is going to be his downfall. His what's worked for him in the past doesn't work when you've argued that you're basically, delivering the next American Revolution or something, and nobody feels anything.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that like especially with what's going on right now. I mean, last week they had the jobs reports come out. The jobs reports was there was 22,000 jobs added in August, and the expectation was 75,000. They revised the other June and July reports to losing, over 10, 20,000 jobs as well. And then not only that, it says the unemployment rate rises to 4.3%. So we're seeing unemployment rise, we're seeing less jobs added, and we are also seeing that there's actually more people than there are job openings, which is the first time that this has happened since I think it said 2021, 2022. So we're definitely feeling the impacts on that. But I want to go really quickly back to the Epstein conversation of like where my thoughts are on this whole thing because I truly believe like I think that Donald Trump is the type to exploit children. I don't think that there's this extravagant list, how the whole Pizzagate thing where they said there was a
yeah.
pizza shop or that they were selling children online on I forgot what exactly they were selling it on, like through um, dressers or whatever it was.
Hmm.
I think the reality is there's probably like 5 to 10 weirdos or creeps that were involved with the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing that, were helping with the whole, finding children and then doing what they were doing, sexually exploiting them. But I think the reality is that if there was this extravagant list that could bring down the entire United States government or bring down the economy as we know it, because it's all of these politicians, all of these CEOs and vice presidents, it's all of these like all these different individuals. I think that like why would Jeffrey Epstein be dead? Wouldn't there be a kill switch, right? Like the whole point of a list like that is like if you kill me there's a dead switch, and that dead switch will release the Epstein files, which is why like I've always had trouble with the idea of Jeffrey Epstein having like not killed himself because like I think the reality is like if he really did have an entire like extravagant list and blackmail in order to make sure that nothing happened to him, why was he still killed and why was the list not released? And so like I think that's where I'm at right now in my head. I think that Jeffrey Epstein or not Jeffrey Epstein, but Donald Trump decided to exploit a situation, blew it up bigger than it actually was, making it seem like there were like thousands of people involved in this extravagant exploiting of children and shipping them over to an island. And now he's trying uh, to kind of reverse track and fix all of his mistakes. 'Cause, I mean, it is kind of wild to see how he's kind of switched from I'm going to be the most transparent president in history, having the whole at the front of the White House with these influencers holding up binders saying like the most transparent administration in history, to saying this whole thing was a hoax. There was no list on Pam Bondi's desk. Kash Patel and
Hmm.
Dan Bongino no longer have any evidence or don't have the connects that I mean, they're literally the FBI now. So like they don't have the proof that there was like this whole extravagant list. I think that it's a situation that Donald Trump made up or not made up, but like he embellished it to the point
Yeah.
where now they're trying to say like, okay, like let's reel this back. It's not as big as you might have thought. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile. He was a weirdo. He was a creep. There was probably maybe 5 or 10 other people that were involved with this, but it's not this whole
Mhm.
top down governments involved, economies involved, like all of these other people involved. And like now I think he's trying to do damage control and he just can't because he
Mhm.
opened he released the genie and there's no way putting the genie back in the bottle, unfortunately. For him, of course.
I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple months they start leaking out, or maybe even weeks at this point, anybody who is on the list or could have gone to the island or done something um that he doesn't like, that doesn't, you know, toe the line the way he wants to or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I could see him start using that and especially weaponizing it against Democrats, and I don't know, let's say he goes after Bill Clinton or, some Democratic donor or something like that, which like if they did something, sure, but at a certain point, it's hard to trust anything that comes out of them, or anything that comes out on Epstein after this point is all it seems to be lies from them, and
I agree.
it's sometimes it's the way in which they respond because they're all over the place, and as much as I dislike Pam Bondi and Bugino and all these people, they're not nearly as stupid as we like to think they are.
Yeah.
Certain things, but for whatever reason, whether it's the president, whether some other argument, or whether it actually is just truth, there's not really that much there that they know, which is, you know, almost nobody would believe that, and I don't think you should. But, you know, you wouldn't be flailing all over the place.
Yeah.
You would seem to be confident, and I might add that any normal human being wouldn't respond and say that it's a hoax while people are testifying about it in front to the cat like
The
the
timing,
people.
the timing and
It,
optics on that entire thing was just so bad. You're right. Like while they were still on the Capitol
yeah,
steps talking about this situation, Donald Trump is doing a press conference live saying that it was still a hoax. And I was just like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like usually, we talked about Donald Trump and the attention economy and how well he's been able to
Mhm.
control attention, um, and kind of navigate the narrative to whatever he wants it to be. He obviously slipped up there because like that just looked bad on his part. I mean, even people on the right wing were talking about how this looked bad. Which, by the way, it's kind of funny that you brought up Bill Clinton because I don't know if you saw, but a couple of influencers started sharing a clip where they started interviewing the Epstein um, victims. I think it was either on MSNBC or NBC, whatever it was, and they had asked, "Did you see Donald Trump?" And one of them was like, "No, we did not see Donald Trump." And then they cut off the clip. But if you see the rest of the clip, it says, "Yeah, and we also didn't see Bill Clinton either." So it was kind of wild to see like how they decided to slice and dice how that clip was spread out, saying
Mhm.
like, "Oh yeah, Donald Trump is not on here," but they also said, "Oh, we didn't see Bill Clinton," and that was only one person talking, as if there wasn't hundreds of other victims.
Yeah, and I also think that like a lot of the way like people describe it is almost to a level where it's like I don't think it's one, we don't know all the details and things like that, but like what most likely happens seems to be is that they recruit people and that you know name the person that you want on the Epstein files. I don't think every single person that was doing stuff necessarily believed that these were underage girls.
Yeah.
They probably didn't really do their research or care. Some of them might have been actually looking for that. So, you never know those things. But
Right.
I think the issue is that, somebody like Epstein and Maxwell, they would probably exploit whatever the certain type of girl that you would like or you would want. And I do think that, you know, once you've done it once, and then, supposedly they don't have recordings and they didn't do videos, eh, it seems inaccurate. Like if you're gonna do run this island over here and make all this money from, I don't know, just randomly, you're really good at business or whatever the argument is, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that it's just obvious that there was something there. And they were, probably once you get to that point, they have you in some ways, like you would do whatever they want. And it could be nothing. It could be, a couple $1 million and that's it. And hey, how you doing or whatever. But,
Right.
I also think that uh, they probably brought people in for like a massage or something, and then something led to another, and then it's like, oh, I got you. Which
That's
we'll
that's
we'll see what comes of it, and I don't know if we'll ever really get full answers on that,
yeah.
but
Did you see that's kind of what happened to Matt Gates, where I don't know if you saw they released some of the conversations that were had with I guess whoever that guy was that ended up being arrested
mhm.
that was going to testify against Matt Gates, but he had said that that apparently that Matt Gates did in fact have sex with a 17-year-old girl, but he didn't know how old she was. And I just thought that was very fascinating because I was just like, why would you try to angle it that way of like, yeah, I mean, they are technically having sex with, teenagers, but they didn't know that they were teenagers. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make them look any, I mean, well, I guess it kind of technically does make them look a little better, but the fact that, they
There's
were,
a lot of other issues with most of these people. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, for
not to
sure.
say this is gonna sound bad, but like the sexual assaults and everything beside, you're still an awful human being. You still did something pretty
Yeah,
bad.
right.
So, whether, morality, I think they're all probably messed up people.
Yeah,
But,
I agree.
you know, we'll see what comes of it. I think it still has not been resolved, and it's still a very massive issue that most of the American people want answers to, and it's not going away.
Yeah.
What I guess is going away, I guess the Department of Defense.
Yeah, so that was changed via, was it executive? Yeah, I believe it was via executive order
It
last
technically
week.
wasn't changed, but it's a
Yeah.
nickname because you can't legally change it. But you can, I guess, you can scrape it off, even if it's not legal. You can scrape defense off and
Didn't
put war. They
did they
did.
not? Well, I know they scraped it off, but did they
Yes.
not sign like an executive order saying that it was?
It doesn't matter if the executive order they signed
I'm
it.
just
It's
saying, wasn't
it's
there
not.
like an executive
Yes, but
order?
it
Okay.
legally it didn't change the name
Right.
because that was something decided like Congress did that, which none of it really matters because they're just gonna they literally changed all the handles on Twitter and everywhere. It's the Department of War because I guess they think being called the Department of War is cool. I mean, they literally were talking about we're gonna go on offense now. What does that mean? We're going to launch wars that we're not going to go to Congress approval for, which, I mean, is basically what it seems to be happening with Venezuela, to be honest. But, well, not just Venezuela, I guess Chicago too. We're invading it, all
Yeah.
these places.
Okay, so
So,
like as much as I'm against going to war against other countries, going
yeah.
against cities within the United States just seems massively insane to me. So like, I mean, we saw the post that Donald Trump had posted about what's it called? He's saying like you're gonna learn.
Apocalypse now.
Yeah, and say
Yeah.
like you're gonna learn why we're called the Department of Chicago. Buckle up, you're gonna learn why we're called the Department of War now. So like,
hmm
what do you think that this means? Do you think that National Guard is going to take it a step further than what they have been doing in DC, where there's going to be like a lot more active engagement with citizens? I mean, where do you see this go? I mean, in your mind right now, because I feel like this could go anywhere at this point, but where do you feel like this is going to go?
I mean, I saw a little post that he did recently too, and he was basically saying, um, that people want this and they should ask for it now or else, basically. Which is really weird to use the same rhetoric that you use against dictators and these, whatever government you don't like in different areas on your own citizens. And look, is crime an issue? Sure. But we keep going back to crime. It's not even about crime anymore. It's about the optics. You do not sit there and declare war against Chicago or tell Chicago that, I mean, I sometimes, just think about it. It's like if somebody was talking about, I don't know, Shreveport, where Johnson's district, or
Yeah,
um,
which
I don't know,
there's
just
some talk about.
any red city. And it can't be Memphis, it can't be Atlanta. It's not in red states. They don't like those places either. So you can't it can't be those places. But to sit there and threaten them with troops, if a Democratic or liberal president did that, it would be insane.
Yeah.
It would be derided as divisionary. What are they doing? Saying all these different things. But you get to have as much disdain as you want for New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago, any city that doesn't fit your particular politics, supposedly, you just don't care what how they talk about them.
Yeah.
And I think one is the average American might just they'll find some reason to dismiss it, right? They'll say, "Well, he's talking about the crime. You only have to any something to fear about if you're a criminal. Getting criminals off the street is going to be great." But the truth is that's not how we're supposed to go about solving crime. We're not supposed to send the troops in regularly to patrol our streets and sit there and act like the crime in certain areas is so much worse than crime in red states.
Yeah.
Like crime is bad wherever it occurs, and you should solve it wherever it occurs. And the thing is, it can't just be Democrats' issues and problems.
And you can't deploy the
Right?
National Guard to solve crime. That doesn't.
Well, you should. I mean, it's arguably that. I mean, even Megyn Kelly was talking about how this is wrong. He can't do it. The Constitution doesn't give him that right. And I wanted to say to Megyn, it's like, okay, but that doesn't matter. You like nothing matters about what's the Constitution. It matters whether Donald Trump wants to do it.
Yeah,
And
which is
look, maybe
insane.
he'll stop. Maybe he'll stop when the Supreme Court makes certain rulings and things like that. But they'll give him far more power than he deserves.
Yeah.
They will, and they'll be just fine with whatever happens. And I think, one, it begins to make me question, what are we going to look like? Like if we just send the military and the military takes care of crime, I mean, how many steps before police state do we get to?
Yeah.
And people think that that's dramatic or it's crazy to say or whatever it is, but I mean, in a lot of ways it is because as soon as you change it at a Department of War, you're talking about sending them to Chicago, threatening a war with a regime change war in Venezuela, basically, for the
Yeah.
sake of bombing drug cartels. Like now we're gonna do the war on terror, but the war on drugs in the Americas. Like, at what point do we see that, this is not the pro-peace presidency. This is like pro-war with everyone. I
Yeah.
will send the troops wherever I want to send the troops.
Yeah.
And that's not how we're supposed to operate. You can have whatever conversations you want to have. You can talk about, in the case of Venezuela, you can say Maduro's a dictator. He's all these different things, which, yeah, I think he's all of those things. I think he's probably a sleazebag. I think he probably does have ties to the drug trade,
Yeah.
which, I'm gonna be honest, I think there's probably some American, like CIA agents or you list it, you name it, who
Yeah.
probably have some ties to the drug trade. Are we gonna drone strike them?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
at what point do you just, I mean, if the presidency, if the president becomes the ability to just kill anyone he wants without any sort of due process, and people say, well, I don't want drug terrorists to live. I don't care if they die.
Yeah.
You should though. Everyone should get their due, their date in court. And look, with foreign nationals, things like that, I understand sometimes the decisions aren't always black and white, right?
Hmm.
But at a certain point, you know, if we just start abandoning all the rules everywhere, what what right do we have to tell other people to, not do this or not do that, right? If you're going to do it and then you want to critique us when we do things, they're not going to hear that out. Um,
Lead by example.
yeah, exactly. And also, I don't think anybody voted for another war, especially a war like, there was such a conversation about how regime changes are bad. Regime changes, what the Democrats do. They're going to send Kamala Harris is going to send my son to Ukraine and he's going to die there. And now it's like your son is going to go to Venezuela. And look, I'm not sure what steps they're going to take. it seems I don't think there's enough political will in this country, and beyond that, it would cause a firestorm for him.
Yeah.
Like you think Thomas Massey and Rand Paul and people are critiquing the president now? They would be, and the thing is I they're right on, they're spot on recently with a lot of their takes, and I don't agree with their politics all the times. I sometimes think it's just they're downright awful politics
Yeah.
sometimes. But when they're right, they're right. And if they're able to see these things, I do get kind of a little irritated with the Democrats who are just willing to like not do anything, not fight, not have any sort of comeback towards that. Because at a certain point, if you just let the president keep making these decisions, Congress is going to have almost no power, and we're going to continue to get into foreign wars that we have no business being in.
Yeah.
And so it's not just the conversation around what actions we do, but also like what precedent this sets. Because I mean, if he's going to war now with Venezuela because of drugs, Lord help us. I mean, what won't he go to war for?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely concerning because I'm like I'm watching and not only that that people were talking about like due process. I don't know if you saw on Twitter Brian whatever his name last name is said like he's like shouldn't these people get due process or whatever and JD Vance was like if bombing like drug cartels and all of this is considered like not getting due process then like I don't think that we
I don't
should
care.
have due process. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and that's the
which
whole thing with everything regarding immigration. Suddenly, nobody gets due process. I mean, not even individuals who came here claiming asylum. I mean, we have begun this, I guess, descent into tyranny because, like, there's nothing that we can do as American citizens anymore, and we don't have the ability to uh to actually extend that to people here in the United States. Like they're not getting due process. Like, well, I mean, what other rights are
mhm.
we going to start taking away from immigrants too?
Yeah.
Like what happens if somebody gets killed? Are we not going to prosecute whoever killed an immigrant in the United States because, they're not considered U.S. citizens anymore? Like where does it officially stop? Like where is the line that
Mhm.
we draw?
Yeah, I mean, I think under a lot of people get sympathetic to JD Vance's argument, right? Well, if they're smuggling drugs, I don't care about their life.
Right.
And you can think what you want to think, sure. But at a certain point, they're going to use those tactics against, they talk about drug dealers like that in this country. What are they going to do to them?
Right.
Does just because they're criminals, does that justify everything you do? Or should you not, I mean, we like to call ourselves a land of laws and, that everyone's innocent until proven guilty, right? But it only really applies to certain people, right? Like, I mean, they want you to believe that anybody, like, they'll list, the people that they don't like, and you absolutely have to be convinced that they're criminal. But they'll go on and list, tons of people who I'm like, that's a person who convicted of a crime. That person did a crime, and then but it's their people. So it's completely justified and it's fine.
Right.
Um, and I think when we begin to selectively apply the laws, um, I mean, really the entire rule of law begins to kind of fall apart. And look, people can say that it's just going to happen on foreign soil, or it won't happen to me, it won't happen to me. It's not true. I
We're
mean,
only like 8 months
yeah,
into his presidency,
exactly.
and
And
this
also,
is
I think,
happening.
um, you know, there was a Supreme Court ruling recently, just now, and we'll probably cover it a little bit more in depth once there's some more details, which basically gives Trump the authority and ICE the authority to basically pull people over based on just speaking Spanish, their
Yeah,
race, ethnicity,
I saw that.
and
It
they
was
can
just
just pull
released
them over.
today.
Yeah, exactly, and they can just pull them over and question it.
Yeah,
What part of that isn't racist?
right.
Like, sure, maybe that person who speaks his, well, admittedly, a lot of undocumented people in this country are Hispanic. They might speak Spanish, they might, be brown. But at what point do they just not have rights then? Do all Latino Americans get to be profiled and that's okay and that's just?
Yeah.
You're not going to pull over all the white people. Like there's too many excuses for how, you know, it's not racist. Well, we need to do that. Crime's so bad. Crime's so bad, so you get a racially profile anyone who fits a certain description. And, let's be honest, they talk about it like it um kind of the juxtaposition of crime and immigration these days, where, they start talking about crime and like criminal neighborhoods, and they talk about how all these illegals are bringing in the drugs and they're bringing in the crime and all these different types of things.
Yeah.
When it's like, that's your personal belief that you think certain people are more criminal than others. Because it's not. It's not statistically true. It's not shown to be true. But because of the way in which you think and the way in which you feel, you get to target those people.
Right.
And, admit, like, who does that really, it doesn't protect a lot of Americans, because I guarantee you, we've done it time and time again. There will be Americans who will be targeted for this. Like, not every single person that you pull over that is Hispanic is an American. A lot of them are either immigrants or could have even been born here.
Yeah.
Like, your assumption that somebody's speaking Spanish and they're not born here is just not accurate.
Right.
Um, but you really, the only people who are American is whoever the ICE agent decides is American right before they arrest you or they put you in cages.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw another story with ICE recently where they, locked two, three um, Americans who were protesting people being taken. And it's one thing to deport criminals, things like that. But then you're throwing people who are protesting. You don't have to like their right to protest. You don't have to like their right to what they have to say. But to throw them into a van, I mean, sure, they were released later, but they weren't doing anything besides exercising their own rights.
Yeah.
And you throw them in a secret van,
And they're detained.
and exactly, like, I mean, when ICE gets done, I guess, terrorizing Latinos and going after people like that, who are they going to go after next? They have a massive budget.
Yeah.
They're going to start policing the streets with ICE, which they already are doing, basically. The Chicago is a perfect example. It's, the military and ICE in coordination with each other.
Yeah.
But when ICE begins to start, taking on cases and things that really aren't their jurisdiction, like, why is the Homeland Security or the Border Patrol going in like DC and patrolling the streets? Like, it's a mixing of, and arguably, I mean, um, he's already militarizing them and almost creating a, ICE unit underneath him. In a lot of ways, it's creating his own police force. Like, yeah, it starts out as ICE, but you give ICE a budget the size of the IDF, you give it a massive mandate, you're going to use it. And, if they are used in ways that maybe go beyond their jurisdiction, eh, there is no concern for the legality of it. It's, can I do it? Again and again.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's also like one of the big things that's kind of curious to me right now with Donald Trump is like, he's pushing for Texas to, redraw their maps and to give him five more seats, but it's like, what's the point? You're already breaking the law. You're writing executive orders. You're not even going through Congress to get anything passed, really. So, like, what is the whole point of redrawing the maps if you're going to continue to sign executive orders and just automatically assume all of the power that you have in order to control things? Well, this was a fun conversation, Chase. I appreciate you as always. We'll be back next week to figure out whether or not Chase is actually, in fact, gay or if he's closeted straight. And I'll see you next week, my friend.
see ya.